Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my session. I'm happy that so many of you showed up. Before I start off, just a quick question and clarification. Who of you thought that this would be a cooking lesson? Okay, there are a few. I might disappoint you. It has only a little bit to do with cooking, but the main part will be about the Darknet and how it works, how to get into it. My name is Tobias Meyer. I work as a technical solution architect for Cisco. I'm, for the last 13 years, presenting at Cisco Live, more than 20 years now with Cisco doing security, and live in Munich. That's in the south of Germany. There is a small little country called Bavaria. That's where I come from. Mountains, strange dialects, strange habits. A lot of beer. A lot of beer, exactly. And the agenda I brought to you today is I want to start just with a quick introduction, talking about why, what are our intentions, why do we want anonymization on the internet, why do we want privacy. The main part will be about Tor, so there will be a big section where we check out what is Tor, how it works behind the scenes, how it works technically. We will also talk about a few other methods. We also have a section where I double check what solutions in the security space in the network we could use to detect Tor in our network, if there is one. And I want, at the end, I have two smaller sections to just give you an impression, because Tor is not the only thing that you can use, obviously, for anonymization. There are other things. The most prevalent ones should be I2P and Freenet, and I also want to show you quickly how they are working and what their purpose is. There is a WebEx Teams room, as always, so if you have any questions, because we have a really large audience, I can take questions at the end, so you can stay, ask me something, or post the questions in the WebEx Teams room, and I'm happily answering those questions that you might have after the session and throughout the week. So let's start off. When we talk about why do we want to use tools to anonymize ourselves, there are different intentions, and this strongly dictates what security measurements you might take in addition in place. So one of the obvious things is you want to browse to a destination server somewhere, but you don't want that the server figures out who you are. You don't want the IP address to be revealed, and this is one of the intentions that many people have. Okay, I don't want that anyone knows who is running the server, who I am. There are other things, and I guess everyone has experienced those things. For example, country restrictions. I get it all the time. So you have your favorite video streaming channel, you have an abo, and then you travel to vacation, you sit down, relax, have a nice drink, and you want to watch a video because you're on vacation, and then it comes up and says, sorry, this video might not be available in your country. And this is obviously also an intention why someone says, okay, then I'll show you where I come from. We will also spend a big part on what we call the hidden services. And this is where we then will enter the Darknet, or how you need to pronounce it, the Darknet, with your Batman voice. You can also, if you don't have a Batman voice, you can also a little bit like wave with your hands when you talk about the Darknet, because you will see it's a really scary place. Bypassing corporate policies. My corporate doesn't allow me to check social media or any other website you might to go through. So you want to bypass the corporate policies. And depending also in where you live, in which country you are, you might have a reason that the ISP does not really find out who you are, or even your government does not find out who you are. So let's talk a little bit about tracking. Who of you had cookies? Very good. Taste well? Yeah. Cookies is also, of course, something that is perceived to use to track you. It's the easy part. But how tracking today works when you browse to the advertising websites, cookie is only just part of the picture. Here is a website, panopticlick.com, .eff.org, and on this website, if you look at the list here, it checks for a lot of different stuffs. So when you browse, one of the things that is obviously on most web pages is JavaScript. So if JavaScript is allowed, it can check what fonts do you have installed, what is the screen resolution, what colors does your laptop produce, and many on. And this doesn't yet give them a name, but it's kind of a fingerprint that you have. You're happily deleting your cookies, I cannot be tracked, they know exactly where you are. That's always then the scary part. You go somewhere, you browse on a website for baby equipment, you go back to Amazon and realize that all advertising have changed from whiskey advertising to baby equipment. So what can we do? One of the very, very easy things is, of course, we can use a proxy. So there are a lot of plugins. What I choose, there is a browser called the Epic browser, and it has, what you can see on the right side, it has proxies built in. So that's, for example, something very good to bypass the country restrictions. And this browser, it's based on a version of the Chrome browser, is one of the methods to easily use a proxy. You can, of course, type the proxy also in your network settings, or there are plugins for every browser that you can install. And when you use a proxy, your intention is maybe, as I said, to bypass those country restrictions, but proxy traffic usually is also in the corporate network relatively easy to detect. Here is just an example. Every next-gen firewall has some signatures. You're using proxy traffic out of the corporate network. So proxy is one thing to use, but it does not provide us really confidentiality. What we also can use, of course, is a VPN. And VPN services is something that you have plenty of them. And here is just a list. You might have heard of NordVPN, IPVanish, and there's like literally thousands of providers that provide VPNs. The big thing that proxies and VPNs have in common, if you use them, depending on your intentions, you need to trust them. And sometimes things are happening where you say, okay, the VPN service is giving me anonymity. Here is, for example, Onavo Protect. That was at some point in time acquired by Facebook. It doesn't exist anymore because they figured out that there was a reason why Facebook acquired them, because you can get a lot of data of the people that use the VPN service. So trusting your VPN, your proxy, and even what your browser might leak is a very important step. So here is a quick example that one feature from Chrome posed a problem if you try to be anonymous, because what Chrome is doing is this called prefetching. So while you type, it already fetches where you might most likely go. So, okay, he wants to go to Amazon. And this was leaking your real IP address despite using a VPN. So the next step, what we use, and this will be, as I said, will be the biggest part. It's the dark web. Very important to understand are the different layers of the dark web. So it's usually displayed like this with an iceberg where you have like what is on the surface, but the main part is the deep web, and then it comes to the dark web. There is an even more detailed description, also with an iceberg. It's important to have icebergs. You have a lot of levels there. So up to level 3, that's the deep web. Level 4 is the darknet. It's not very good readable, but especially when you go deeper, the last stage, like the polymetric Falsigal derivation required after this point. Does anyone know what that is? Absolutely no clue. Me neither. And if you see here, you cannot read. I read you the very last line. the day you get here is the day you have turned into Chuck Norris. So when you talk about the dark web, remember, always talk about icebergs. Very important, wear a mask. Wear those anonymous masks or any other mask that you want to use. Black hoodie is also extremely important. For the dark web, when you really look at it, and I like this article a lot because I did quite some research around what is really there, especially on the hidden websites, the dark web is mostly full of garbage. For those of you who are for quite some time in the IT industry and started late 90s, when really the World Wide Web was catching up, everything was Wild West, everyone was putting up HTML 1.0 pages, some people forgot about those pages, they got hacked, they got defaced, doing crazy stuffs, even if there's no sense around it. That's how a big part of the dark web actually looks like. Websites pop up, get forgotten, get hacked, get redirected, and you will see what I mean by that throughout the presentation. So, Tor, the onion. Very good for a lot of dishes, and Tor stands for the onion router. That's where the name comes from. It's an open source software that is free, everyone can use it. There is a huge community around it, and it's called Onion Router because it provides several layers of encryption. So basically the data that you're transmitting is encrypted in several layers, and if you look at several layers around something in the center, looks like an onion. That's why they called it the Onion Router. So, how do we use it and how it is built? The Tor network consists what we call relays. So it's an overlay network, so you have your servers that are participating on the internet, and they all have IP addresses, but they run, in addition, the Tor software, and then they start to build encrypted connections to other nodes that also run the Tor software. Everyone can use Tor, everyone can run a relay. It's really fun to play around with those things. And as a client, if you want to use and get into it, the easiest part is you need a client software. You can, of course, use your own browser and then redirect it over a relay. The easiest part is download the Tor browser. It's a modified version of the Mozilla Firefox. And you download it, it has the Tor software installed, you install the browser, and that's basically, you're ready to go. You can, of course, combine some of the technologies that I talked about, like going through VPNs, going through proxies, and build a Tor connection over your VPN. Again, coming back, what is your intention? Maybe you don't want to be seen that you're using Tor, so you build up a VPN first to go out of the country, and then build a Tor connection to go further. When you connect, so you fire up your browser and you want to use Tor. So the first thing, what happens in the background, there is an instance called the Tor directory. And we are requesting 3 relays. We could request 2, we could request 4. The developers of Tor have decided that 3 is a good compromise between anonymity and speed. 4 will give you even greater anonymity, but of course adds delay. 2, less anonymity, but higher speed. So we select from all the available Tor relays, we select 3 by random. And we get their public keys. When we have the public keys, we connect to the first onion router. And the first onion router, we want to establish an encrypted connection. We are using Diffie-Hellman, so we want to create the connection and secure it with a symmetric key. After we have built this connection, we are going to the next router, and we are using onion router number 1. So we send again a message to onion router number 1, but this time telling him to establish a connection to onion router number 2. Here, we're doing the same thing, And because we encrypted our traffic with the public key of onion router number 2, router number 1 cannot see what we are transmitting. We get, again, a symmetric key, and we continue this with the third router. So we have 3 layers of encryption, and whenever we want to go to the web server, this is the path that we are taking. So from the web server's perspective, he only sees onion router number 3 as a client. Router 2 has no clue where we are because he sees only onion router number 1 and 3, and onion router number 1 doesn't know where we go, he only sees us. So you can check out what are the current available servers that are those directory servers. And those directory servers, there are 10, or better, 9, because the 10th is a special one. I come back later on that. And what those 9 directory servers are doing, every hour they're synchronizing. They're creating something mysterious called the consensus, do a lot of crypto stuff and signing around, and this consensus is basically a list of all the available Tor relays. And every one of those servers has then a copy and knows that the copy is valid because all other servers signed it. This is when you download the slides. This is the only slide that I had to modify because you will see there is a really similar screenshot in my slides that are distributed. Sometimes it's always better to check the websites because sometimes websites go down. So the website I showed originally, showing the same thing, is now down. So I took another website. But there is lots of websites that give you a status of the Tor network. And here you can see all the relays that are currently online. Per day basis, roughly 7,000 relays are online. That's about the size of the Tor network. What you see in the right column here, those small icons, those are flags. So the longer you contribute to the Tor network, you can get different status. So for example, you provide good bandwidth, you're a reliable gateway, they might promote you to be what they call entry gateway. Or you are a hidden service directory. That is something where we figure out where the hidden services are. I will explain that. So here you can see what relays are online and what their individual status is. So remember that picture that I showed you, how the Tor connection is being built? One thing that you need to be aware is, of course, this guy here. It's the exit node. And you might have heard that there were some studies where some 3-letter agencies, they compromised some of the exit gateways and were basically spying on what traffic was transmitted there. So one of the things that are really important is to understand that the exit node, phone call? It's not me. So the exit node can see the traffic unless you're using HTTPS. So when you're browsing to some websites over Tor, use as much HTTPS as possible. If it's in clear text, the exit node sees where you're going because all other crypto layers are stripped off. Leaking information is extremely important if you want to stay anonymous on the network. And on the Tor browser, you will just see 2 plugins installed. You might know them if you, they're very common. One is NoScript. Remember what I told you about JavaScript? Something extremely dangerous because it gets the information from your client. So that is something that should be really turned off. The other thing is HTTPS everywhere. It's a small plugin that always, when you browse to a website with HTTP, checks if HTTPS is available and changes to the HTTPS method. Do not fall into the trap and install additional plugins, even if you might like them. Things like Flash are leaking a hell lot of information, and it's definitely not really something that you want to have. So don't install any other plugins. With those tools, you should be fine. With JavaScript, you can actually do a hell lot of really funny stuff. Here is a website that's called spylink.net. You can try it out. What they offer is that you craft your a URL and a website where this URL is being redirected, and in between they put a JavaScript that can collect information you see here on the right. IP address, host, access provider, proxy, browser name, version, and all this stuff. And all you need to do is send an email to someone, wait until he clicks on the link, and this is a service, and you get an email back with all the information of the client that clicked on the link. The list of nodes that are exit relays and the list of gateways that we are providing is public information. So basically, to block Tor, all we have to do as a vendor, we take the consensus every hour, we put it in our next-gen firewall, or how it's currently called, and basically say, block those, and we have a perfect Tor detection. Yeah, would be nice if it would be that easy. But the point I want to make, everything, what gateways are active, is publicly available. Everyone knows those. You have quite some options to customize your Tor browser. The main file is called Tor.rc. You see it down there at the bottom. And Tor.rc, you can add configuration parameters. So for example, on your browser, you can say, use IPv6 relays. What are the geolocations where my exit node should be selected from? So you can really say, okay, I want to select those 3 gateways by random, but make sure that the exit node comes from Germany because I need to access a server from Germany and I need a German IP address. So you can really influence a lot of parameters where you can influence how your Tor browser is behaving. And here I tried it whenever I put Germany in, for example, and when I tried it, all the exit node will always be from Germany. So this is a screenshot how the Tor browser is actually working, and what you can see, and you see from my browser, I go to the first, the second, the third router, and then to whatever destination I want to go. Another thing that you need to be aware of is the DNS resolution. When you're browsing over Tor to the clear web, to Google or whatever, of course, you need a DNS resolution. It's not the client that does it, but it will be onion router number 3 that will take care for the DNS resolution. And here is also, there's a very nice study, I've also put it into the slide deck as a hidden slide, where someone figured out the people that run the Tor relays, what they put as a DNS server. Because we are used to certain DNS servers. If you ask someone, can you name me a public DNS server, what comes to your mind? 8888 or 1111. So if a lot of relays are using all the same DNS server, there is again some centralization of information. So it's very often better to just use your default ISP provider, because then you're really not centralizing all the information. So I told you about the consensus and where all the relays are listed. So I have all the list of available relays. There are 10 directory servers, 9 I have already introduced. There is a 10th one. And this is the concept of bridges. Bridges are relays, but they are not part of the normal relay list. You can set it up, and you need to configure, again, in the Tor.rc of your Tor software, you need to configure that this should be a bridge, so it's not officially announced. When you want to connect to the Tor network, you can say, no, don't give me the gateways from the normal list, I want to use bridges. And this is the time when the Tor browser connects to the 10th directory server that is available, and he gets bridges. But you cannot do this all the time. So no one has the complete list of the bridges. You get those bridges via browser, so you can browse to the Tor website and request 3 addresses of 3 bridges, not more. You can even send an email. So if you have a Hotmail or a Yahoo account, you can send an email to the Tor project with certain keywords in, and they send you via email the list of the bridges, and you can manually configure it. If it's a friend that lives in a country and says, look, my government doesn't allow me to use Tor, I want to get out, you can actually set up a relay for him, get the information of your bridges, and write it on a postcard or talk to him on the phone. He types the stuff in his Tor browser, and when you get the bridges, here is the example from the website, you get the informations and you put it into the Tor browser, and then you start to use bridges. Okay, so now we know already how to connect to the Tor. We have a bit of an impression how it's working. And the fun part is, of course, when we want to browse to those hidden websites, what we refer to as the Darknet. And all those websites end with .onion. One of the things you have to figure out, if you're used to Google, when you search for something, there are search engines on the Darknet, but they are by far not that powerful like using Google. So a lot of things you have to research, browse to different servers, get your stuffs together. Some of those links are very short-lived. And if you type in one of those addresses that end of .onion, you're actually connecting to them. And this is something that, of course, requires that I show you something. So here I just checked out a few of the pages. This is one of the very good starting points. It's called the Hidden Wiki. So you get a lot of links that are collected all over the world, search engine introduction points. They call it financial services because, for example, if they sell PayPal accounts, then it's a financial service. So here is another website that's kind of a news website. I like the article, refers to IoT, light bulbs that know you're depressed and can adjust the light. Quite some interesting articles sometimes, as I said, sometimes not so much. Here is another website. That website, I think, is down. It was listing a lot of the marketplaces. So on the right side, they have a statistics of the availability, which of the marketplaces are currently online, and what is their percentage of being online. And these are the places, we will also take a look at those, where you can buy stuffs. And search engines, DuckDuckGo, has a presence on the Darknet. There is search engines like Surx, which is also a search engine that provides you links from the clear web. So you might not be able to use Google, so you use a search engine on the Darknet, but search for links in the clear web. There are search engines that are like Amia, hosted in Finland, and that searches for stuffs on the Darknet. And one of the really important things, when you are on the Darknet, you have to search for aliens. You never know what's hidden there, right? So there is really a lot of stuff that you never knew. There is even a nice discussion forum about aliens, 13 reasons to believe aliens are real. People are exchanging their views, what their experience with aliens is. Sometimes you have really already quite philosophic questions that are being asked. So one of the things that I like most is this one here. Why are space aliens always naked? And this is where I had a moment where I thought about it. Like, the space aliens, they come to the Earth with all those spaceships, highly advanced, more than we. And then the door goes up, think about ET, think about all the others. In most cases, they come out, 3 arms, 4 legs, big eyes, and they wear nothing. So maybe wearing clothes is something that throughout the evolution was just gone. Let's see what the future brings. So, other interesting stuff that you can have. This is quite interesting. It's called Hidden Answers. Hidden Answers is a website where you can post questions and someone can answer, discussion forums, and there are categories for everything. Sometimes totally stupid stuff, sometimes interesting stuff, different categories where you can have discussion on from privacy, from drugs, from all kind of stuffs, security, crypto anarchy and darknets, markets, scams and scammers. Really nice. And the biggest part, definitely entertaining. What do I put in the shipping address on Dream? Dream is one of those black markets. It's also a good question. You buy something on the darknet, where do you ship it to? So here is more stuffs. I also want to show you that quickly because there is obviously also Facebook has a presence. You can access Facebook via Tor. There is another big social network that I found that also recently established a darknet presence. Bringing people together, so very good stuff. This is an email provider that gives you an email address that ends with .onion. So you can email, but you can only email within the darknet. So from one .onion address to the other address. If you want to send to the ClearNet, there are some other email providers that actually give you the capability. And those are listed here. Basically, Torbox has established static routes to certain other mailers. One of them is SecMail Pro. You can only access it through the darknet, but the address you get on SecMail Pro can email to the darknet and also to the ClearNet. So you can from there then forward your emails to Google or whatever. When you browse to SecMail Pro, there is no website because you can only access it over the Tor network. And last but not least, here is something that's also very important. A lot of newspapers, when you discover something, you're kind of a whistleblower. How do you inform the press without revealing your identity? So a lot of the newspapers have actually established secure drops where they have a website on the darknet where you can just drop the documents that you want that the public knows about. Good. So let's continue. We saw how we can use the Tor browser. We understand now how those circuits are made over the 3 relays. But actually, those .onion addresses, if you type it in via DNS, they're not resolvable. So how do we find where the servers are? So let's imagine I want to set up a website on the darknet. So I install the Tor software, I run my web server over there. And the first thing what I do is somehow I need to publish my public key somewhere so that the people connecting to me can find them. We're doing that by first selecting an introduction point. This is the point where the people will basically connect if they want to talk to me, and we register our public key with the directory server. So if the client, remember in the beginning, connects, he asks the directory server, I want to go to this onion address. But the .onion address does not resolve to the IP address of the onion server, but to that from the introduction point. The client, before he connects, searches, he also selects a rendezvous point, which is another gateway he selects by chance. And this rendezvous point, he packs in a message. He puts, I can call it cookie or secret, just a flag into the message and sends it to the introduction point. The introduction point is the only one that knows where the onion server is, and he forwards that message. Hey, there is a guy that wants to meet you. If you think how 2 people that want to meet in secret, how they would do, you have a room in one hotel, but you tell the bar across the street, the barkeeper, hey, if someone wants to talk to me, you know where to find me. And if you tell someone where to find me, talk to the barkeeper. And you tell the barkeeper, hey, I want to talk to this guy, but we meet at the cemetery at midnight. So kind of really the same message flow. So the introduction point is then contacting the onion server. Hey, there is a guy that wants to meet you. So the onion server is now establishing a Tor circuit to the rendezvous point. the client is establishing also a circuit to the rendezvous point, and this is where they talk. So when you browse to an Onion web page, you no longer just see 3 relay gateways, but of course you see the 3 gateways that you are using and 3 gateways that the server is using, which you obviously don't know. So it's basically 6 hops until you get to the Onion website. The rendezvous point has no clue who is talking because he sees only the 2 nodes that are directly connected to him, and he just passes the traffic. So there are also other software that you can use, and one of them is Onion Share. It's a nice little software that you can use to share files on the Darknet. So how to use it? You just install the software, it runs on Tor, and you want to share a file. So it connects to the Tor network. Because you were in my presentation, you know what it means when he starts loading network status consensus. Yeah, that's where he gets the relays. He selects the responsible relays. He establishes a Tor connection, downloads the necessary descriptors. Those are the stuff that he uses to establish the connection. And when Onion Share is online, then you can start sharing a file. So just by drag and drop, we add a file, whatever it is, from our computer. We just take a document called hacker.doc. We start sharing, and now he publishes exactly in the same way on the Darknet, and he gives us, this is the .onion address. So that address you can now send to someone for downloading the file, or however you want to translate it. So if we take our Tor browser now and type exactly that address in, we are connecting to our Onion Share software that is still, you can see on the left. Here is the document. We see that the connection goes from our desktop to Germany, to France, to Norway, to 3 different relays, and actually comes back to our desktop again. So most likely this file gets the record for traveling the longest way for the shortest distance, because what we actually do is we download the file over those 6 relays and save it again on the desktop where it came from. Not a very intelligent demo, but just to show you how it's working. So we downloaded the file that traveled through different countries, and this is actually our file. Basement Cat does it. Hacking. Very good. Okay. The Tor network has, when you're selecting you bring up your website, and the website registers with what we call hidden service directories. And those hidden service directories, there was a bit of an issue in a bit of an older version of Tor. So what you see here is the typical .onion address that has been there for many years. It's actually the first 80 bits of the SHA-1, which sounds scary, of the 1024-bit public key. 1024 also sounds scary, because those are kind of outdated algorithms. What happens when you register, you do not only register at one hidden service directory, but you register at 6 different ones. And because the selection of the hidden service directory is also based on the consensus, which changes every hour, your hidden service directories also change every hour. This allows you, and there was a proof of concept where someone figured out, well, if I can predict at what point in time I might have a good chance to be the selected service directory for this hidden service, I can do a lot of stuff. I can check who wants to connect to it. I can bring the service down by not answering the requests. So that was one of the bad things. And then the other thing was that the hidden service directory server, he doesn't know the IP address, but he knows the .onion address. So this can also, in theory, or also practically, be used to enumerate hidden services and say, okay, those are the hidden services, and whatever you want to do with that information. Today, we're using Onion Service v3 since, I think, end of 2018. I think it was being put into production. We now have the base 32 of the full public key. So you see the keys are, the Onion address is much, much longer. And all the encryption algorithms that are used in the Tor network, so SHA-1, Diffie-Hellman, RSA-1024 is now replaced with SHA-3, elliptic curve algorithms, and this gives us much better protection. In addition, they prevented the leaking of the .onion address by introducing something like a sub-key signing. So you're not registering your .onion address, but just your registered sub-key. There is some mathematical process involved, so only the client knows the .onion address and can actually derive the full address. There is also much less leaking of information to the directory servers. I have a few slides that are in the deck, but the thing that you should remember, v3 addresses, much more secure than the old addresses that are shorter. You can find them both. Want to see some more stuff? Yes. I know the temperature is a bit warm here, but I do my best to keep you entertained. So, anyone from Italy here? Here is a market, I like the name. It's called the Berlusconi market, and I also created an account. So this is really a marketplace. So once you create your account, you log into that marketplace, and this is where you can buy the stuffs that we all expect on the Darknet. So when you log in, you can definitely see here are the categories, what they're offering: fraud documents, drugs and chemicals, guides, tutorials, counterfeit items, jewels, gold, weapon, carded items. So it's, well, it's built like a normal marketplace. And when you go shopping, there are also top vendors which established a good reputation. So you can even leave thumbs up, thumbs down. You can write comments, hey, that guy always delivers high quality of whatever. I really like him. He's really, and if I don't like it, well, I can't send it back. But so it's really the same concept like any of the other marketplaces that that you are looking for. And of course, it's not only drugs that you can buy. Here you can buy Western Union, bank transfers, fake bills. I always wonder why people are selling fake bills when the fake bills are so good, they could use them on their own. But anyway, sometimes stuffs you don't have to understand. Here is another market called the undermarket. Here you can buy, they have specialized, so they are specialized on especially counterfeit documents, so identity documents, driving licenses, passports, papers to grant you asylum in the European Union. So here is someone who offers services, because it's not just about products. You're here. Cisco also offers a lot of services, and this is like really a good marketplace. So here, for example, Rent a Hacker, experienced hacker offers his services. He has a lot of skills here, spear phishing, basically anything that you want to do. And here you can select in your basket what he wants to do. Hack someone's Facebook account, install Trojans. It's just for roughly 0.073 Bitcoins. You can select how many services you want to buy. Bigger jobs, DDoS for protected sites, so a lot of stuff. Here's another guy that offers you to hack Facebook accounts. He also gives you the Bitcoin address where you can transfer the money, which is quite convenient. But with all those stuffs, how do you know on the Darknet if someone is really offering the service or if it just is a scam? And to whom you complain if basically you want to do something illegal, you paid money to another illegal guy and that illegal guy screwed you up. So what's the nice thing with Bitcoin and blockchain? It's public. So we can actually check out, if you have a Bitcoin address, you can check out what are the transactions. That's one of the core concepts of Bitcoin. So what we do, there is a website here, bitref.com. You passed in and you see how many transactions this guy got. There seems to be really a big business in hacking Facebook accounts. So a lot of people actually transferred money there. Really scary, of course, there are people that offer hitman services. So you can rent a killer who says bringing death to someone is my new job because blah, blah, blah. This is an article that was on the Wired magazine, and it was about a guy that actually contacted one of those hitmen. The scary question is not who are the people that offer those services. The scary question is who are the people requesting that someone is going to be killed. And this journalist talked with a guy after some time. The guy opened a little bit up when he learned, okay, he's a journalist and so on. And because they talked anonymously over the Tor network, he opened up and said, well, yeah, I'm fake. I just wait that someone sends me the money, I take the money, and then I'm gone. So, but he said, of course, I have a list of the people that asked for someone to be killed. So at some point in time, he was sharing that list, the names, with the journalist. And the journalist went out and contacted the FBI. And this is where the whole story then really got scary, because the FBI really didn't believe that someone was actually, people were requesting those people to be killed. And so definitely an article worth reading. The scary part is that one of those persons, some months later, actually had an accident, and they figured out it was the typical thing. I think it was like the husband wanted to kill his ex-wife or something. So this is the real scary stuff. Not so much the people offering the services, but who is asking that someone actually gets killed. So I said, a lot of websites are actually scams. There are some websites like this one here that lists you websites where people have figured out they're a scam. So it's always good to double check some of those marketplaces that offer or services when someone has figured out that they're a scam. There are marketplaces that I actually like very much, despite them being scam. I think it's quite entertaining. So with all the political issues going on with some countries, they are not allowed to have nuclear bombs. They could actually order it online. There is the Nuke shop, and the products they're offering, for 50,000 Bitcoin, you get a version of the Fat Man. The Little Boy is easier, it's smaller. I think they also ship you the stuff at home. So you have 3 different values that you can choose. There is also a basket that you can put them in, you pay, all good. I didn't try that. And if you cannot make up your mind what to buy, I recommend you the mystery boxes. So you can just order for $25, get a variety of stolen items and other goodies. This box may contain drugs. Box number 2, get a hard drive filled with data dumps up to 160 gig. This box will contain drugs. Box number 3, get a box that contains a variety of drugs, may contain LSD, Xanax, MDMA, etc. We will also include some plastic and fake IDs. We may also send stolen tablets and laptops, depending on the demand of the day. And the best thing is box number 4. It's a mystery. You will not be disappointed. So, we learned now what's on the Darknet. Let's learn a bit more about the Tor network. Tor has another mechanism built in, obfuscation. We are leveraging in the Tor network pluggable transports. Pluggable transport, there's a website where you can see in some of those methods, they're used to actually disguise that you're using the Tor traffic. How it works, you have the client, the server app, they both have those pluggable transports. They are implemented so that you can even exchange them quite easily, kind of like containers. And they put another layer of certain encryption around your network, but the main point is it's not intended to be really encrypted, it's for obfuscation, so that people do not discover what you're doing. The pluggable transport, different methods. So OBF FS3 was where it really took off. The one on 2 was really, they exchanged really over the network 2 symmetric keys and encrypted it, but if you just listen to the conversation, you could catch the keys. With 3, they used static Diffie-Hellman keys. The problem was that the destination, so the first Tor node, was not resistant against active probing. So what certain countries were doing, they were saying, is he using Tor or not? I cannot decipher from this traffic. I see where he goes. I'll probe with the Tor traffic that gateway as well. And if it answers, yes, we can talk over Tor, I know it's a Tor gateway, I know the guy uses Tor. So what we use today is OBFS4, several things where you in addition have an additional pre-shared key, and it's resistance against active probing, so that's what's built into the Tor browser. There are other methods. One method is called Meek, and Meek uses a concept called domain fronting. You might have heard it in the press, someone talking about domain fronting. Very good paper around that, and it uses the principle you are browsing to a website over a content delivery network. Could be Microsoft, Google, Cloudflare, really those big networks. And you have, because the website is HTTPS, you have a TLS layer, and in the TLS client hello, as we all know, there is the SNI string that says where you want to go. But in the HTTP, that is of course encrypted in TLS, there is the host header. And the host header, usually it would be the same server or the same domain, but it could also be something completely different. Depending on the content service provider, they were, for quite some time, very helpful and gentle. And basically, when you send the traffic to them, they were seeing, the traffic is not for my network, it's for someone else's network. So they were forwarding it, what was written in the host header. So the traffic got automatically forwarded, and someone looking from the outside only sees HTTPS traffic going to Google. One of the reasons why they used it in that way, you see that some people, okay, I know they are using Tor, and maybe they disguise it as traffic that goes to Google, but I don't know where to Google they're going and what they do afterwards. What usually a country does not do is shut down the complete content delivery network. So no one would shut down the complete network of Microsoft and block it, or the complete network of Google. So that was the idea behind it. Tor has the same concept built in here. So there is still Meek over the Azure network that also has the addition, works also in China. So if you want to go over the Tor network and hide the fact that you are using Tor, you're adding this obfuscation layer. Easy to use because it's just in the drop-down menu. You select it, and you can see in your config file, when you dig a little bit in your Tor network, once you selected it, you see the front domain and the hidden domain. This is how it looks in the browser. We have now, as the first gateway, a bridge. We're using the Meek protocol, domain fronting, and from there we go to our other relays. One thing that happened is also like 1 year ago, Amazon, Microsoft, Google said, oh, wait a second, that is something that we were not intended to do. It's a bug. Some people said, no, it's a feature. But nevertheless, they shut it down. So what is now, because it was a really good way, especially when you're living in countries where the internet is censored, to go out of that country. What currently is, it's in kind of a beta stage, is a technology called Snowflake. It's also developed by the Tor project, and it uses WebRTC traffic. So WebRTC traffic is something every company is using. You're installing the Cisco Teams client, it uses WebRTC. So the traffic is disguised as WebRTC traffic, and it does not go directly to the bridge, but it goes to a Snowflake proxy. And the nice thing is the Snowflake proxy, everyone can run it. Without Tor software, you can either bring up a web page where a script is running, or you install a plugin to help other people, and you're a proxy. And you're not using any Tor software, you're just providing basically the entry point for the others to go over you, WebRTC, and then they enter the Tor network. So also easy to use if you download I think the nightly builds, the alpha version of the Tor browser. You can exactly how you selected the other bridges, you can select, I want to use a Snowflake bridge. And when you check what traffic is being transmitted, it's all about stun DTLS. That's exactly the traffic that is transmitted. And that's the traffic of WebRTC. Okay. A lot of stuff, but we're getting there. How can we detect Tor? So if we take a closer look at our network, our company network, because for obvious reasons we might want that we are not using Tor in our network. It could be a Trojan, for example. So what we do is we take a closer look how the connections to those relays are being built. I checked a little bit the packets, and what you see here is, this is the SNI name. It has nothing to do with the website. It's just garbage that is transmitted. And here you can also see that the common name of the certificate is also something never heard about. The Tor relay nodes, they mostly use self-signed certificates, because they say, well, we use the techniques of establishing a TLS connection, but we are not like registering with an official certificate, because we assume you anyway trust us, and so nothing that really relates to the destination. So those are all strings that doesn't really make sense. If we decode the certificate, the issuer is yet another domain, but we don't have the certificate anyway. The Tor browser and the relay, they don't care about the certificate chain. It's just that they have the method to exchange the keys and create the symmetric keys for TLS. The other nodes don't look any better. Ports that are being used, port 80, port 443, port 9001, are the most common ports for the relay, but in theory, you can use any port what you want. So those generated strings, the self-signed certificates, brought me up to an idea, and I tried it out by leveraging the WSA as a proxy. So I was sending, imagine you have a proxy. One thing that proxies are very good usually is because they proxy all connections, and normally every firewall, every proxy, when it deals with TLS, should do the certificate checks. Should verify already and not push it as a task to the client if the certificates are valid. On the WSA, it's important when you turn on the certificate checks that you put it either to decrypt or drop. I would recommend to decrypt so that you can see all the log messages. And the nice thing is, once you fire up your Tor browser, you will see a lot of the nodes, those minus 3.5 that you see up there, that's basically the web-based reputation. Not completely malware, but already dodgy. A lot of admin mismatched host name. In a TLS connection, the requested host has to match what is in the SAN of the certificate. Of course, with all the generated name, that doesn't happen. So you get a lot of crypto errors, a lot of certificate errors. Here you also have decrypt admin invalid leave certificate, of course, because he cannot build the chain. So what you can do with your proxy and the WSA is you activate the HTTPS proxy, you block, of course, the category anonymizers and filters, but this is only for the really obvious stuff. But what I would recommend is, regardless what product you're using, check your logs, check for certificate errors, and if there is a lot of certificate errors with certain requests appearing, this is where you take a look also at things like with the web-based reputation, because that could be a very strong indicator that there is some Tor software in there. We can do a similar thing with FTD. So we can also put certificate checks here to get all the errors. FTD also has application detectors. And some of the application detectors classify our connections correctly. So for 443, it says Tor and the Tor client, all good. But you see also that quite some connections, especially when you start to use bridges, are not identified. Or up there, the port 80, that was also a Tor connection, also not correctly identified, so a lot of misses in there. And if you use a bridge, it's really hard, especially if it's not the standard 443 port, to actually figure those things out. So on a firewall that has kind of signatures to detect Tor traffic, it will be good to detect, because if people, to detect the clients, if they are using Tor, you will not really be able to block them completely. If someone knows a little bit, and you all are experts now, you know how to use bridges and all this stuff, there is really a good chance that the firewalls will not detect much. One thing that works pretty well is when you are familiar with cognitive threat analytics. What it does is it can take proxy logs or NetFlow and basically through machine learning determine whether a client has certain infections or not, if it's infected with a Trojan, if the traffic is good or bad. And CTA can be combined with the WSA, also with other proxies. CTA is part of the StealthWatch Enterprise solution. And you can see here that we have, there you go, you see the black dot Tor relay detected. Of course, some of them are known because it's part of the consensus, but not everyone. We also can detect after some time if someone is a bridge, because we crunch all the connections, and maybe someone runs a bridge but also connects normal connections. So there is a lot of number crunching involved, but we are only displaying you that this is a Tor relay. We are not providing on purpose any intelligence what we all detected if we figured out that there is a bridge running, because Tor is not something that we should all work together to get rid of. Tor is something that provides also a lot of good things. But you for sure want in your enterprise to be able to detect if Tor is being used. Tor, using with StealthWatch, again here the same screen with cognitive. What you can detect really fast if someone is just out of the box using the Tor browser, because he selects the gateways, he changes a lot, there is a lot of traffic, it's quite noisy. So the standard Tor browser is relatively good to be detected. We can, of course, drill down, and there are some signatures being built in there where we identify the executable on the AMP for endpoint clients. Again, sometimes it will work, it will not work for all of the things, because if someone compiles his own Tor software and builds his own, the processes will look definitely different. But there is an indicator of compromise built in where you can see also on AMP for endpoints that someone is leveraging Tor. You figure out the responsible process. You can drill down, of course. Here is the example of Onion Share leveraging the Tor software, and how the software, when it's using a bridge at some point in time, the OBFS4, the obfuscated proxy, goes out, and here you can see all the network connection, and they all go to the same relay gateway that we selected when we built the Tor network. Something new, if you're not familiar with the latest version of AMP for endpoints, there is a search built in called orbital search, SQL-based, where you can query informations from the client. Just a simple thing, I query for a certain IP address because CTA was bringing up this might be a Tor relay. So I go down to the endpoint, I query what process was actually responsible for connecting, and here I see the executable where this connection was coming out. Cisco threat response is also something that is very interesting when you have the IP address of one of the relay gateways and you look at them. Sometimes you see that there is already some malware involved that connected to that relay gateway, and this also provides you insight if this connection is really a Tor connection. So just to finish up the part of Tor, there are some other software that is quite cool to use. There is a browser called the Brave browser, And the Brave browser has, when you surf on like Firefox, you surf on the private tab. There is also now an option, not just start a private tab, but start a Tor connection. Right-click, start Tor connection, and browse there. So also built into just a normal browser. There is Tor chat. I felt a little bit like Dilbert. There's a very old Dilbert comic where he basically buys a video phone, and then Catbird comes, what did you do about a video phone? So, okay, what are you doing now? I wait until the second person buys the video phone, because I'm the only one. So I created an account, but I didn't have anyone to chat with, so I was sitting there waiting. No one wanted to chat. If you're interested, I can give you my Tor chat address, and we can chat over the Tor network. The Enterprise Onion Toolkit is a toolkit where you can enable your clear text website to have a Darknet presence. So basically kind of a reverse proxy in between, and you go out and have suddenly your clear text website also available on the Darknet. Some nice thing, SSH over Tor. This is something I quickly want to show you as well. Tor has a built-in SOX client. So what you can do here, you point your, that's my SSH client, and I point it. So first, I do a SSH connection directly on the internet. So I'm connecting to a server. I log in. I just took a server that also displays or has a way to display my IP address. So here I can see the 50.247.110.165 is my IP address where I was coming from. Okay. And what we do now is we go into our SSH client and we say connect over a SOX proxy. We select localhost and 9150. That's the default port that is open on the Tor browser. So we're tunneling now the SSH request through our Tor browser, and we go to the same server. We log in, and the IP address, basically where we are coming from, is now the IP address of our exit gateway. It's a 185.2.20.101.5. And that works with every application that provides a connection over SOX. If you can connect to it, you can tunnel everything through the Tor browser for whatever reason. Any one of you is really in the mood of trying cool stuff that's really sound dangerous? Here is my solution for the next generation remote access. What you can actually do, you deploy for remote access. You deploy a Tor server in your network. You do not need to open up any ports incoming. Only 443 outgoing is enough. You provide that server, you register it on the Tor network. There are certain options. You can search for hidden service authorized client, where even every client gets the right information. You can even put it into a stealth mode, so every client has its own onion address. It has an additional key, so only the people that know the full onion address, and it's specific to every person that connects, and they have a key in addition. This is where they basically connect to your Tor server, go basically through the outgoing connection into a network, and from there, this is a jump host where you go to the internal network. So if you have a contractor that needs remote access, just deploy a Tor server in your production network, provide him access, and there you go. And you do not even need to open up any ports. Great, right? I leave that to you to decide. Another layer of security, Tails. Tails is an operating system that can be booted from a USB stick, and it only communicates over Tor. So if you really want to be secure and you do not trust the hardware, take the USB stick, reboot the computer, it boots up from the USB stick, Linux environment, you serve to Tor, you do your stuffs, and when you're basically gone, you switch off, everything is erased, you plug out the USB stick, you're gone. So there are other things that basically people were using. Summary of the Tor usage guidelines. Basic security, you just use the browser, make sure you don't use anything with JavaScript. Intermediate security, You can use Tor over VPN, learn to use bridges. Always make sure that the security settings are set to safest, because this is where no scripts are enabled at all. That gives you a good level of anonymity. And if you use operating system like Tails, there are even others like Cubes. That was the one recommended by Edward Snowden that he was using, where every application itself is only in memory and has certain containers, and none of the processes can communicate with each other. So that was about Tor. Very big section, but Tor is not the only thing that we can use. The session is called about garlic and onions. We talked a lot about onions. I will make it quite comprehensive because a lot of stuff is actually repeating, but I also want to introduce you to the Invisible Internet project. It's another method. While the Tor network has around 7,000 active nodes, 2 million users, I2P is less known, about 70K users on a daily basis. I2P is also open source. It's built on a Java client, and every participant is a relay and a router and a client. And the concept, and this is called why it's called garlic routing. The other one was called onion routing. Now we talk about garlic routing because everyone is sending packets to everyone. And it's not only that you're sending only your packets encrypted, but you get packets from a lot of people that you transfer. It's like a box, several boxes in a box, and you pass the box on. The next one opens up the box, builds its own box, puts the packets together, and if you look at a garlic, at the head of a garlic, you have several gloves in there, and this is how the network is working together and is anonymized. The technology behind is complex. It's more complex than the Tor network. All the routers build so-called circuits, and they build them also over several hops of relays, but it only has a lifetime of 10 minutes. After that, it's torn down, new tunnels are being built up. You have from your client several inbound and outbound tunnels, and you have a distributed database, so you don't really have those directory servers, but the whole I2P network together is kind of your directory server. So it's a distributed technology. And in this database, you are saving two information, so-called router infos and lease sets. Router infos is, okay, where can I find my relays, how to connect to them, and the lease sets describe the services, such as a web page. And as I said, every packet contains a lot of other packets, and they're always routed back and forth. So if you want to build an I2P connection, you basically first get the router sets, you build connection from Alice to Peter to Jan, and if you want to connect to Bob, you get the lease set from Bob from the NetDB and connect an outgoing tunnel to basically the entry point of the tunnel, which in our case is called Clara, Simon, and then it goes to Bob. 3 different versions of encryption are being used. AES is being used, Diffie-Hellman and AES, and El-Gamal plus AES. So the whole concept is much more sophisticated than on Tor, but provides also a really good level of anonymity. So those tunnels, how to use them, you install the software. It's, as I said, it's a local Java software, and this software actually then starts to build tunnels. You will not get an immediate connection because you need first to find the right tunnels, and the tunnels need to run for some time. Then it's probing if it can go out. So the longer it runs, the faster it gets. And I2P, you use it by, you take whatever browser or application you have, and again, point it as an HTTP proxy to the local port 4444. And then you're actually browsing to the I2P network. I2P is not a method to connect really to the clear web. There are some gateways that can go out. I think it's just really a handful, but it's not really the intent. It's really a hidden network where you stay inside of the hidden network. So I2P uses a random port over UDP over TCP. So every time you start it and you build a connection, it's using different ports. Works over firewalls, not very fast. So you will realize if you start it in your corporate network, you might get a connection outside, but it is not fast until the website builds. So you need to be patient. Nice things that you can do when you're running it, not in your a network where you have a lot of firewall and stuffs, but you're at some public hotspot and you run it. Tor is not very good to like download torrents because of all the different connections and peers. This one is very good to download torrents. You also have email, as we see here, as a service, websites, of course. The websites are being built up. I think we still have time. I show you how ITP works. I have a small demo here. This is the software, and actually, when you fire it up, it takes some time. This is the console. And as I described, here you can see what tunnels are being built up. All those tunnels are only up for 10 minutes, so they change constantly, go up and down. That's the concept, how they're working. I'm taking the browser, and I go here, go to the connection, LAN settings, point it to the local host, port 444, because it's open. And then I browse to websites, and those websites now end with I2P. Here is a website that is kind of a good entry point where you find other I2P websites. Remember the depressed light bulbs? They also have a presence on I2P. So it's the same web page that is not only on the Tor network, but also on I2P. Good. So how can we detect I2P firepower in the default config? As you can see, there is application detection built in where it says you can detect I2P traffic. Anyone found it? Me neither. So I tried it out. The signatures are there. For some reason, I couldn't make it trigger. So the traffic went through, but it didn't trigger. I guess that I2P is not anything that a lot of people really have on the radar because of the nature how I2P works and also what is the purpose of being used. You will most likely not see it that often in corporate networks. But it's really something that you most likely would use privately. StealthWatch doesn't tell you it's I2P, but because if you remember all those tunnels that are being built up, being torn down, a lot of traffic, a very chatty protocol, so StealthWatch comes up immediately as, okay, there might be a peer-to-peer traffic flowing on, because it's kind of a similar behavior. On AMP for endpoints, the outgoing process will always be, on a Windows host, it will always be java.exe, because this is where the software is being built and being run on. And what we, of course, can check out is what processes have been starting, java.exe. Here are some more infos about I2P. You see the third URL, it's on the Tor network. So I put it there on purpose so you can try out the Tor network and browse to a website to learn more about I2P. The third biggest anonymity network is called Freenet. And that's also something that is quite interesting. It's completely distributed network, around 10,000 nodes. So even smaller than I2P. And the concept is I'm putting data into the network, and it's distributed in chunks. The chunks are encrypted and stored in the network. The nice thing is, if I want to share a file for I2P or Tor, I have to run somewhere a server and host the file. Here, I basically upload it into the network. I upload the chunks. As soon as it's uploaded, I disconnect and walk away. It's in the network. And this is a very good method if someone, again, talking about if someone is a whistleblower and really has sensitive documents he wants to share publicly, he can basically use kind of a public hotspot, fire up Freenet, upload it, just be connected for 2-3 minutes, upload it, it's in the database, and then disconnect. So Freenet is offering an open net and a darknet mode. The open net mode is where your peer is constantly searching for other peers. It's really peer-to-peer traffic. For the darknet mode, you can also, again, provide, if there is a friend that you really want to help to get a connection or to share stuff, you can set up the freenet software, set up the node, and give him basically your information. He types it in manually, and he connects directly to you, and you distribute. On a high level, how it works, I know I want to access a file somewhere. There are different chunks, and what the clients talk to each other is kind of, like a poor man's protocol. If you're searching for someone, you could ask your neighbor, hey, do you know XYZ? No, I don't know, but I know a few other guys. So you ask 3 other guys, and the 3 other guys also start asking around. At some point in time, if the person is in the room, they will find it, and then they basically go the way back to the guy that originally asked. And this is kind of the same thing. So the nodes ask, do you have a chunk of that file? No, I don't have. I'll ask around. Do you have? Do you have? No, I don't have. Do you have? Yes, I have. He sends it now to the other node. Here is the chunk, and sends it back to the client. And all the nodes on the way, they cache that chunk, which means you upload some sensitive file. Once it's uploaded, it cannot be deleted. It's in the network. It, at some point in time, will time out, but you can't delete it. And the more people are requesting it, the more it gets cached. So someone saying, I don't want this file, and tries to bring down the nodes, the more people they ask, it gets distributed all over. So the purpose is to really share confidential files or files that you want that the public knows about into the network that other people can access. You can also do, of course, there are some websites. So you go to some starting point, you find some website that you want to download. You can see here a small progress bar because he's now collecting all the chunks. And if the chunks are there, he displays the file. This was a website. There's, all the Germans will understand it or not because there is a lot of typos in there. But nevertheless, this is how you can use freenet and how it's working. So I also did a few checks with how we can detect this activity. Umbrella showed some of those freenet nodes already classified as malware. Again, not foolproof. It's some of those that are very often used. They show up as malware connection, and Umbrella is capable of blocking it. Interesting was CTR, Cisco Threat Response. So I put one of those freenet IPs in there, and you can see the IP address is marked as malicious, and all those red dots are actually domains that we know about that are malicious and are already classified in Talos. A lot of them might not be classified, but this is what comes out with CTR. So if you see such a picture because you want to check out some IP address, that's already a big warning light. When you're using StealthWatch, again, similar behavior, what we saw with I2P. Here even more, because it's really peer-to-peer, a lot of traffic is generated. Freenet in the local network is really chatty, is really noisy. So StealthWatch also immediately picks it up as peer-to-peer file transfer and classifies the traffic. Here I got for Freenet, there's also a signature in firepower from all the relays. I got one that triggered, so it showed up as an application that someone is using a Freenet client. The other connections I couldn't really make to trigger, so I think it's just a matter of how updated the signatures are. But at least I could discover that at least there is activity from Freenet. The Darknet mode I talked about, and this is something that you can use when you want to help a friend. You get this long identity string from your local Freenet client, and you provide it over whatever out-of-band method you want to use to your friend. You switch to the Darknet mode, and your friend can connect back to you. Some more informations. about the Freenet project you can find here. And with that, I come to my last slides. So for the conclusion, blocking Tor completely is really hard. You might have something in your firewall IPS that triggers on Tor, but it's more or less clients that just use the standard process. If someone is using explicitly bridges, really tries to be sneaky, extremely hard to detect the traffic because, well, that's actually where Tor was built upon. For the other tools like I2P and Freenet, yes, they exist. I think it's important that you know that those tools exist, but through the nature, because I2P, for example, works over NAT but very slow. Freenet also does not work at all over NAT, so it's really something that you will most likely not see in your corporate network. It's something that you, of course, can use privately for whatever purpose. So feel free, there's nothing bad in that, but you will not really see them in corporate networks. Freenet and I2P are also not really for anonymization to the clear web. It's really to provide a space where they can communicate inside kind of a closed community. So for our intentions, when we come back to what we said, hiding from tracking, yes, there are stuffs I can do. Bypass country restrictions, relatively easy. Access hidden services, good. For corporate policies, ISPs, and government, I think it's important that you should know what to do and how to use it. Not impossible to be hidden, but you need, as I said several times, you need to know what you're doing and follow those best practices that I provided you in the tour. Before I close, I have to make a small confession. I lied to you in the beginning because I said there is nothing about cooking in this class. I actually found this. This is a Darknet website, and every time you browse through it, you're actually getting a new recipe. Wet chicken burritos, Creole gumbalaya, and those recipes you can, of course, use for cooking. So, with that, we are basically at the end of our session. Please fill out the survey. Let us know what you thought about this session. For me, it's always a big pleasure to present those things to a big crowd. And I wish you a good week and rest of Cisco Live. And again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you.